Chapter 8 of the Last Journals of David Livingstone in Central Africa, from 1865 to his death, Volume 1 of 2, 1866 to 1868, by David Livingstone and Horace Waller. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 8 Chitapangwa's Parting Oath, Course Laid for Lake Tanganyika, Mwamba's Village, Another Watershed, the Babemba Tribe, Ill with Fever, Threatening Attitude of Chibue's People, Continued Illness, Reaches Cliffs Overhanging Lake Liemba, Extreme Beauty of the Scene, Dangerous Fit of Insensibility, Leaves the Lake, Pernambuco Cotton, Rumors of War between Arabs and Nasama, Reaches Chitimba's Village, Presents Sultan's Letter to Principal Arab Harems, The War in Ottawa, Geography of the Arabs, Ivory Traders and Slave Dealers, Appeal to the Quran, Gleans Intelligence of the Wasongo to the eastward and their chief Merere, Harnees Sets Out Against Nasama, Tedious Sojourn, Departure for Ponda, Native Cupping. 20th February 1867. I told the chief before starting that my heart was sore because he was not sending me away so cordially as I liked. He at once ordered men to start with us and gave me a brass knife with ivory sheath, which he had long worn as a memorial. He explained that we ought to go north as, if we made easting, we should ultimately be obliged to turn west, and all our cloth would be expended ere we reached the Lake Tanganyika. He took a piece of clay off the ground and rubbed it on his tongue as an oath that what he said was true, and came along with us to see that all was right, and so we parted. We soon ascended the plateau which encloses with its edge the village and stream of Molemba. Wild pigs are abundant, and there are marks of former cultivation. A short march brought us to an ooze, surrounded by hedges, game traps, and pitfalls, where, as we are stiff and weak, we spent the night. Rocks abound of the same dolomite kind as on the ridge further south, between the Luanga and Chambeze, covered, like them, with lichens, orchids, euphorbias, and upland vegetation, hard-leafed acacias, rhododendrons, masucos. The gum copal tree, when perforated by a grub, exudes from branches no thicker than one's arm, masses of soft, gluey-looking gum, brownish-yellow and light gray, as much as would fill a soup plate. It seems to yield this gum only in the rainy season, and now all the trees are full of sap and gum. 21st February 1867. A night with loud and near thunder and much heavy rain, which came through the boys' sheds. Roads all plashy or running with water, oozes full and rivulets overflowing. Rocks of dolomite jutting out here and there. I noticed growing here a spikenard-looking shrub 6 feet high and a foot in diameter. The path led us west against my will. I found one going north, but the boys pretended that they did not see my mark and went west, evidently afraid of incurring Mwamba's displeasure by passing him. I found them in an old hut and made the best of it by saying nothing. They said that they had wandered, that was, they had never left the west-going path. 22nd February 1867. We came to a perennial rivulet running north, the Marengu. Here we met Mwamba's people, but declined going to his village as huts are disagreeable. They often have vermin, and one is exposed to the gaze of a crowd through a very small doorway. The people in their curiosity often make the place dark, and the impudent ones offer characteristic remarks, then raise a laugh and run away. We encamped on the Menungu's right bank in forest, sending word to Mwamba that we meant to do so. He sent a deputation, first of all his young men, to bring us, then old men, and lastly he came himself with about 60 followers. I explained that I had become sick by living in a little hut at Molemba, that I was better in the open air, that huts contained vermin, and that I did not mean to remain any while here, but go on our way. He pressed us to come to his village and gave us a goat and kid, with a huge calabash full of beer. I promised to go over and visit him the next day, and went accordingly. 23rd February 1867. Mwamba's village was a mile off, and on the left bank of the Merenge, a larger stream than the Marungu flowing north and having its banks and oozes covered with fine, tall, straight, evergreen trees. The village is surrounded with a stockade and a dry ditch some 15 or 20 feet wide and as many deep. I had a long talk with Moamba, a big, stout, public house-looking person, with a slight outward cast in his left eye, but intelligent and hearty. I presented him with a cloth, and he gave me as much myr meal as a man could carry, with a large basket of ground nuts. He wished us to come to the Meringue, if not into his village, that he might see and talk with me. I also showed him some pictures in Smith's Bible Dictionary, which he readily understood, and I spoke to him about the Bible. He asked me to come next day and tell him about prayer to God. This was a natural desire after being told that we prayed. He was very anxious to know why we were going to Tanganyika, for what we came, what we should buy there, and if I had any relations there. He then showed me some fine large tusks, 8 feet 6 in length. What do you wish to buy, if not slaves or ivory? I replied that the only thing I had seen worth buying was a fine fat chief like him as a specimen, and a woman feeding him as he had with beer. He was tickled at this and said that when we reached our country I must put fine clothes on him. This led us to speak of our climate and the production of wool. 24th February, 1867. I went over after service, but late as the rain threatened to be heavy. A case was in process of hearing, and one old man spoke an hour on end, the chief listening all the while with the gravity of a judge. He then delivered his decision in about 5 minutes, the successful litigant going off luluing. Each person before addressing him turns his back to him and lies down on the ground, clapping the hands. This is the common mode of salutation. Another form here in Lobemba is to rattle the arrows or an arrow on the bow, which all carry. We had a little talk with the chief, but it was late before the cause was heard through. He asked us to come and spend one night near him on the Meringue, and then go on, so we came over in the morning to the vicinity of his village. A great deal of copper wire here is made, the wire drawers using for one part of the process a 7-inch cable. They make very fine wire, and it is used chiefly as leglets and anklets, the chief's wives being laden with them and obliged to walk in a stately style from the weight. The copper comes from Katanga. 26th February, 1867. The chief wishes to buy a cloth with 2 goats, but his men do not bring them up quickly. Simon, one of the boys, is ill of fever, and this induces me to remain, though moving from one place to another is the only remedy we have in our power. With the chief's men we did not get on well, but with himself all was easy. His men demanded prepayment for canoes to cross the river Luombe, but in the way that he put it, the request was not unreasonable, as he gave a man to smooth our way and to get canoes or whatever else was needed all the way to Chipuis. I gave a cloth when he put it thus, and he presented a goat, a spear ornamented with copper wire, abundance of meal and beer, and numbo. So we parted good friends, as his presents were worth the cloth. Holding to a northwesterly course, we met with the Chicosho flowing west, and thence came to the Lacombe by a high ridge called La Swassa, which runs a long way westward. It is probably a watershed between streams going to the Chambezi and those that go to the northern rivers. We have the Lacopa, Lowombe, Nikalengi, then Lofubu or Lovu. The last goes north into Liambe, but the accounts are very confused. The Chambezi rises in the Mbamvi country, which is northeast of Moamba, but near to it. The forest through which we passed was dense but scrubby, trees unhealthy, and no drainage except through oozes. On the keel which forms a clay soil the rain runs off, and the trees attain a large size. The roads are not soured by the slow process of the ooze drainage. At present all the slopes having loamy or sandy soil are oozes, and full to overflowing. A long time is required for them to discharge their contents. The country generally may be called one covered with forest. 6th March, 1867. We came after a short march to a village on the Mololanga, flowing east into the Luombe. Here we met with bananas for the first time, called, as in Lunda, Nakande. A few trophies from Mazitu are hung up. Chitapangwa had 24 skulls ornamented his stockade. The Babemba are decidedly more warlike than any of the tribes south of them. Their villages are stockaded and have deep, dry ditches round them, so it is likely that Mochimbe will be effectually checked and forced to turn his energies to something else than to marauding. Our man from Mwamba here refused to go further, and we were put on the wrong track by the headman wading through 3 marshes, each at least half a mile broad. The people of the first village we came to shut their gates on us, then came running after us, but we declined to enter their village. It is a way of showing their independence. We made our sheds on a height in spite of their protests. They said that the gates were shut by the boys, but when I pointed out the boy who had done it, he said that he had been ordered to do it by the chief. If we had gone in now, we should have been looked on as having come under considerable obligations. 8th March, 1867. We went on to a village on the Loambe, where the people showed an opposite disposition, for not a soul was in it. All were out at their farms. When the good wife of the place came, she gave us all huts, which saved us from a pelting shower. The boys herding the goats did not stir as we passed down the sides of the lovely valley. The Loambe looks a sluggish stream from at a distance. The herdsman said we were welcome, and he would show the crossing next day. He also cooked some food for us. Guided by our host, we went along the Loambe westwards till we reached the bridge, rather a rickety affair, which when the water is low may be used as a weir. The Loambe main stream is 66 feet wide, 6 feet deep, with at least 200 feet of flood beyond it. The water was knee-deep on the bridge, but clear. The flooded part beyond was waist-deep, and the water flowing fast. All the people are now transplanting tobacco from the spaces under the eaves of the huts into the fields. It seems unable to bear the greater heat of summer. They plant also a kind of lironda, proper for the cold weather. We thought that we were conferring a boon in giving peas, but we found them generally propagated all over the country already, and in the cold time too. We went along the Diola River to an old hut and made a fire, thence across country to another river called the Loandawe, 6 feet wide and 9 feet deep. 10th March, 1867. I have been ill of fever ever since we left Mwamba's. Every step I take jars in the chest, and I am very weak. I can scarcely keep up the march, though formerly I was always first, and had to hold in my place not to leave the people altogether. I have a constant singing in the ears, and can scarcely hear the loud tick of the chronometers. The appetite is good, but we have no proper food, chiefly myre meal or beans, or mapemba or ground nuts, rarely a fowl. The country is full of hopo hedges, but the animals are harassed, and we never see them. 11th March, 1867. Detained by a set-in rain. Marks on masses of dolomite elicited the information that a party of London-smiths came once to this smelting ground and erected their works here. We saw an old iron furnace and masses of hematite, which seems to have been the ore universally used. 12th March, 1867. Rain held us back for some time, but we soon reached Chiboué, a stockaded village. Like them all, it is situated by a stream with a dense clump of trees on the water side of some species of mangrove. They attain large size, have soft wood and succulent leaves. The roots intertwine in the mud, and one has to watch that he does not step where no roots exist, otherwise he sinks up to the thigh. In a village the people feel that we are on their property and crowd upon us inconveniently, but outside, where we usually erect our sheds, no such feeling exists. We are each on a level, and they don't take liberties. The Balungu are marked by 3 or 4 little knobs on the temples, and the lobes of the ears are distended by a piece of wood, which is ornamented with beads. Bands of beads go across the forehead and hold up the hair. Chiboué's village is at the source of the Loquena, which goes north and northeast. A long range of low hills is on our northeast, which are the Mabembwe, or part of them. The Chambeze rises in them but further south. Here the Loquena, round whose source we came on starting this morning to avoid wet feet, and all others north and west of this, go to the Lofu or Lobu and into Liamba Lake. Those from the hills on our right go east into the Luanzu and so into the lake. 15th March, 1867. We are now making for Kasonso, the chief of the lake, and a very large country all around it, passing the Lokenje, 5 yards wide and knee-deep, then to the Chenyumba, all flowing very rapidly just now, and are flooded with clean water. Everyone carries an axe, as if constantly warring with the forest. My long-continued fever ill disposes me to enjoy the beautiful landscape. We are evidently on the ridge, but people have not a clear conception of where the rivers run. 19th March, 1867. A party of young men came out of the village near which we had encamped to force us to pay something for not going into their village. The son of a great chief ought to be acknowledged, etc. They had their bows and arrows with them, and all ready for action. I told them we had remained near them because they said we could not reach Casonoso that day. Their headmen had given us nothing. After talking a while and threatening to do a deal tomorrow, they left, and through an almighty providence nothing was attempted. We moved on northwest in forest, with long green tree-covered slopes on our right, and came to a village of Cansoso in a very lovely valley. Great green valleys are now scooped out, and many, as the Kakanza, run into the Lovu. 20th March, 1867. These same features of the country prevailed. Indeed, it was impossible to count the streams flowing northwest. We found Casonso situated at the confluence of two streams. He shook hands a long while and seems a frank sort of man. A shower of rain set the driver ants on the move, and about 2 hours after we had turned in, we were overwhelmed by them. They are called Kalandu or Naklanda. To describe this attack is utterly impossible. I wakened, covered with them. My hair was full of them. One by one they cut into the flesh, and the more they are dispersed, the more vicious are their bites. They become quite insolent. I went outside the hut, but there they swarmed everywhere. They covered the legs, biting furiously. It is only when they are tired that they leave off. One good trait of the Balunga up here is they retire when they see food brought to anyone. Neither Babisa nor Makoa had this sense of delicacy. The Babemba are equally polite. We have descended considerably into the broad valley of the lake, and it feels warmer than on the heights. Cloth here is more valuable, inasmuch as bark cloth is scarce. The skins of goats and wild animals are used, and the kilt is very diminutive among the women. 22nd March, 1867. Cross Loela, 30 feet wide and 1 deep, and meet with tsetse fly, though we have seen none since we left Chitapanguas. Consoso gave us a grand reception, and we saw men present from Tanganyika. I saw cassava here, but not in plenty. 28th March, 1867. Set in rain, and Chuma fell ill. There are cotton bushes of very large size here of the South American kind. After sleeping in various villages and crossing numerous streams, we came to the Mombos village, near the ridge overlooking the lake. 31st March and 1st April, 1867. I was too ill to march through. I offered to go on the 1st, but Consonso's son, who was with us, objected. We went up a low ridge of hills at its lowest point, and soon after passing the summit, the blue water loomed through the trees. I was detained, but soon heard the boys firing their muskets on reaching the edge of the ridge, which allowed of an undisturbed view. This is the southeastern end of Liemba, or, as it is sometimes called, Tanganyika. We had to descend at least 2,000 feet before we got to the level of the lake. It seems about 18 or 20 miles broad, and we could see about 30 miles up to the north. 4 considerable rivers flow into the space before us. The nearly perpendicular ridge of about 2,000 feet extends with breaks all around, and there, embosomed in tree-covered rocks, reposes the lake peacefully in a huge cup-shaped cavity. I never saw anything so still and peaceful as it lies all the morning. About noon, a gentle breeze springs up and causes the waves to assume a bluish tinge. Several rocky islands rise in the eastern end, which are inhabited by fishermen, who capture abundance of fine large fish, of which they enumerate about 24 species. In the north it seems to narrow into a gateway, but the people are miserably deficient in geographical knowledge, and can tell us nothing about it. They suspect us, and we cannot get information, or indeed much of anything else. I feel deeply thankful at having got so far. I am excessively weak, cannot walk without tottering, and have constant singing in the head, but the highest will lead me further. Latitude of the spot we touched at first, 2nd April, 1867, latitude 8 degrees, 46 minutes, 54 seconds south, longitude 31 degrees, 57 minutes. But I only worked out, and my head is out of order, one set of observations. Height above level of the sea over 2,800 feet by boiling point thermometers and barometer. The people won't let me sound the lake. After being a fortnight at this lake, it still appears one of surpassing loveliness. Its peacefulness is remarkable, though at times it is said to be lashed up by storms. It lies in a deep basin whose sides are nearly perpendicular, but covered well with trees. The rocks which appear are bright red agricilious schist, the trees at present all green. Down some of these rocks come beautiful cascades, and buffaloes, elephants, and antelopes wander and graze on the more level spots, while lions roar by night. The level place below is not 2 miles from the perpendicular. The village, Pombete, at which we first touched the lake, is surrounded by palm oil trees. Not the stunted ones of Lake Nyassa, but the real West Coast palm oil tree, requiring 2 men to carry a bunch of the ripe fruit. In the morning and evening, huge crocodiles may be observed quietly making their way to their feeding grounds. Hippopotami snort by night and at early morning. After I had been a few days here, I had a fit of insensibility, which shows the power of fever without medicine. I found myself floundering outside my hut and unable to get in. I tried to lift myself from my back by laying hold of 2 posts at the entrance, but when I got nearly upright, I let them go and fell back heavily on my head on a box. The boys had seen the wretched state I was in and hung a blanket at the entrance of the hut, that no stranger might see my helplessness. Some hours elapsed before I could recognize where I was. As for the Balungu, as they are called, they have a fear of us. They do not understand our objects, and they keep aloof. They promise everything and do nothing. But for my excessive weakness, we should go on. But we wait for a recovery of strength. As people, they are greatly reduced in numbers by the Mazitu, who carried off very large numbers of the women, boys, girls, and children. They train or like to see the young men arrayed as Mazitu, but it would be more profitable if they kept them to agriculture. They are all excessively polite. The clapping of hands on meeting is something excessive, and then the string of salutations that accompany it would please the most fastidious Frenchman. It implies real politeness, for in marching with them they always remove branches out of the path and indicate stones or stumps in it carefully to a stranger. Yet we cannot prevail on them to lend carriers to examine the lake, or to sell goats, of which, however, they have very few, and all on one island. The lake discharges its water northwestward, or rather northwestwards. We observe weeds going in that direction, and as the Lanzua, the Kowe, the Kapata, and the Loise, and the Kalambwe flow into it near the east end, and the Lovu or Lafubu or Lofu from the southwest near the end, it must find an exit for so much water. All these rivers rise in or near the Mambe country in latitude 10 degrees south, whereto the Chambeze rises. Liemba is said to remain of about the same size as we go northwest, but this we shall see for ourselves. Elephants come all about us. One was breaking trees close by. I fired into his ear without effect. I am too weak to hold the gun steadily. 30th April, 1867. We began our return march from Liemba, slept at a village on the lake, and went on next day to Pombete, where we first touched it. I noticed that here the people pound tobacco leaves in a mortar after they have undergone partial fermentation by lying in the sun. Then they put the mass in the sun to dry for use. The reason why no palm oil trees grow further east than Pombete is said to be the stony soil there, and this seems a valid one, for it loves rich, loamy meadows. 1st May, 1867. We intended to go northwest to see whether this lake narrows or not, for all assert that it maintains its breadth such as we see it beyond Pemba as far as they know it. But when about to start, the headman and his wife came and protested so solemnly that by going northwest we should walk into the hands of a party of Mazitu there, that we deferred our departure. It was not without a full persuasion of the truth of the statement that I consented, but we afterwards saw good evidence that it was true, and that we were safe from being plundered. These marauders have changed their tactics, for they demand so many people and so many cloths, and then leave. They made it known that their next scene of mulcting would be Mumbo's village, and there they took 12 people, 4 slaves, and many cloths, then went south to the hills they inhabit. A strict watch was kept on their movements by our headman and his men. They trust to fleeing into a thicket on the west of the village should the Mazitu come. I have been informed on good authority that Kasonso was on his way to us when news arrived that his young son had died. He had sent on beer and provisions for us, but the Mazitu intervening, they were consumed. The Mazitu having left, we departed and slept halfway up the ridge. I had another fit of insensibility last night. The muscles of the back lose all power, and there is constant singing in the ears and the inability to do the simplest sum. Cross the Azi, which makes a waterfall 15 yards wide and knee-deep. The streams like this are almost innumerable. Mumbo's village. It is distressingly difficult to elicit accurate information about the lake and rivers because the people do not think accurately. Mumbo declared that 2 Arabs came when we were below and inquired for us, but he denied our presence, thinking thereby to save us trouble and harm. The cotton cultivated is of the Pernambuco species, and the bushes are 7 or 8 feet high. Much cloth was made in these parts before the Mazitu raids began. It was striped black and white, and many shawls are seen in the country yet. It is curious that this species of cotton should be found only in the middle of this country. In going westwards on the upland country is level and covered with scraggy forest as usual. Long lines of low hills, or rather ridges of denudation, run north and south on our east. This is called Moami country, full of elephants, but few are killed. They do much damage, eating the sorghum in the gardens unmolested. 11th May, 1867. A short march today brought us to a village on the same Moami, and to avoid a Sunday in the forest we remained. The elephants had come into the village and gone all about it, and to prevent their opening the corn safes, the people had bedaubed them with elephants' droppings. When a cow would not give milk, save to its calf, a like device was used at Kolobang. The cow's droppings were smeared on the teats, and the calf was too much disgusted to suck. The cow then ran till she was distressed by the milk fever and was willing to be relieved by the herdsman. 12th and 13th May, 1867. News that the Arabs had been fighting with Nsama came, but this made us rather anxious to get northward along Liemba, and we made for Mokambola's village, near the edge of the precipice which overhangs the lake. Many Chouare Raffier palms grow in the river which flows past it. As we began our descent, we saw the Lofu coming from the west and entering Liemba. A projection of Liemba comes to meet it, and then it is said to go away to the north or northwest as far as my informants knew. Some pointed due north, others northwest, so probably its true course amounts to north-northwest. We came to a village about 2 minutes west of the confluence, whose headman was affable and generous. The village has a meadow some 4 miles wide on the land side, in which buffaloes disport themselves, but they are very wild and hide in the gigantic grasses. Sorghum, ground nuts, and voandesia grow luxuriantly. The Lofu is 1/4 of a mile wide, but higher up 300 yards. The valley was always clouded over at night, so I could not get an observation except early in the morning when the cold had dispersed the clouds. We remained here because 2 were lame and all tired by the descent of upwards of 2,000 feet, and the headman sent for fish for us. He dissuaded us strongly from attempting to go down the Liemba, as the son of Nasina, Kapoma, was killing all who came that way in revenge for what the Arabs had done to his father's people, and he might take us for Arabs. A Swahili Arab came in the evening and partly confirmed the statements of the headman of Karambo. I resolved, therefore, to go back to Chitembas in the south, where the chief portion of the Arabs are assembled, and hear from them more certainly. The last we heard of Liemba was that at a great way northwest it is dammed up by rocks, and where it surmounts these there is a great waterfall. It does not, it is said, diminish in size so far, but by bearings protracted it is 2 miles wide. 18th May, 1867. Return to Mokambola's village and leave for Chitimbas. Baraka stopped behind at the village, and James ran away to him, leaving his bundle, containing 3 chronometers, in the path. I sent back for them, and James came up in the evening. He had no complaint and no excuse to make. The 2 think it will be easy to return to their own country by begging, though they could not point it out to me when we were much nearer to where it is supposed to be. 19th May, 1867. Where we were brought to a standstill was miserably cold, 55 degrees, so we had prayers and went on south and southwest to the village of Chisaka. 20th May, 1867. Chitimba's village was near in the same direction. Here we found a large party of Arabs, mostly black Swahilis. They occupied an important portion of the stockaded village, and when I came in, politely showed me to a shed where they are in the habit of meeting. After explaining whence I had come, I showed them the Sultan's letter. Harniz presented a goat, 2 fowls, and a quantity of flour. It was difficult to get to the bottom of the Nsama affair, but according to their version, the chief sent an invitation to them, and when they arrived, called for his people, who came in crowds, as he said, to view the strangers. I suspect that the Arabs became afraid of the crowds and began to fire. Several were killed on both sides, and Nsama fled, leaving his visitors in possession of the stockaded village and all it contained. Others say that there was a dispute about an elephant, and that Nsama's people were the aggressors. At any rate, it is now all confusion. Those who remain at Nsama's village help themselves to food in the surrounding villages and burn them, while Chitimba has sent for the party who are quartered here to come to him. An hour or 2 after we arrived, a body of men came from Kasono with the intention of proceeding into the country of Nasama, and if possible catching Nasama, he having broken public law by attacking people who brought merchandise into the country. This new expedition makes Arabs resolve to go and do what they can to injure their enemy. It will just be a plundering foray, each catching what he can, whether animal or human, and retiring when it is no longer safe to plunder. This throws the barrier of a broad country between me and Lake Morero in the west, but I trust in Providence a way will be opened. I think now of going southwards and then westwards, thus making a long detour round the disturbed district. The name of the principal Arab is Hamis Woudim Tag. The other is Saidi bin Ali bin Mansur. They are connected with one of the most influential native mercantile houses in Zanzibar. Hamis has been particularly kind to me in presenting food, beads, cloth, and getting information. Thami bin Snalim is the Arab to whom my goods are directed at Ujiji. 24th May, 1867. At Chintambo's, we are waiting to see what events turn up to throw light on our western route. Some of the Arabs and Kasonso's men went off today. They will bring information, perhaps, as to Nasama's haunts, and then we shall move south and thence west. Wrote to Sir Thomas MacLear, giving the position of Liemba, and to Dr. Seward in case other letters miscarry. The hot season is beginning now. This corresponds to July further south. 3 goats were killed by a leopard close to the village in open day. 28th May, 1867. Information came that Nasama begged pardon of the Arabs and would pay all that they had lost. He did not know of his people stealing from them. We shall hear in a day or two whether the matter is to be patched up or not. While some believe his statements, the others say Nasama's words of peace are simply to gain time to make another stockade. In the meantime, Kasonso's people will ravage all his country on this eastern side. Hamis is very anxious that I should remain a few days longer till Kasonso's son, Kampaba, comes with certain information, and then he will see to our passing safely to Chiwere's village from Kasonso's. I'll have confidence in this last-named chief as an upright man. 1st June, 1867. Another party of marauders went off this morning to plunder Nasama's country to the west of the confluence of the Lofu as a punishment for a breach of public law. The men employed are not very willing to go, but when they taste the pleasure of plunder, they will relish it more. The watershed begins to have a northern slope about Mwamba's latitude 10 degrees 10 minutes south, but the streams are very tortuous, and the people have very confused ideas as to where they run. The Lokopa, for instance, was asserted by all the men at Mwamba's to flow into Lokolu, and then into a river going to Liemba. But a young wife of Mwamba, who seemed very intelligent, maintained that Lokopa and Lokolu went to the Chambezi. I therefore put it down thus. The streams which feed the Chambezi and the Liemba overlap each other, and it will require a more extensive survey than I can give to disentangle them. North of Mwamba, on the Merenge, the slope begins to Liemba. The Lofu rises in Chibue's country, and with its tributaries we have long ridges of denudation, each some 500 or 600 feet high and covered with green trees. The valleys of denudation enclosed by these hill ranges guide the streams towards Liemba or the 4 rivers which flow into it. The country gradually becomes lower, warmer, and tsetse and mosquitoes appear, so at last we come to the remarkable cup-shaped cavity in which Liemba reposes. Several streams fall down the nearly perpendicular cliffs and form beautiful cascades. The lines of denudation are continued, one range rising behind another as far as the eye can reach to the north and east of Liemba, and probably the slope continues away down to Tanganyika. The watershed extends westwards to beyond Kasembe, and the Luapula or Chambeze rises in the same parallels of latitude as does the Lofu and the Lanzna. The Arabs inform me that between this and the sea, about 200 miles distant, lies the country of the Wasango, called Usango, a fair people, like Portuguese, and very friendly to strangers. The Wasango possess plenty of cattle. Their chief is called Marere. They count this 25 days, while the distance thence to the sea at Bagamoyo is 1 month and 25 days, say 440 miles. Uchere is very far off northwards, but a man told me that he went to a salt manufactory in that direction in 8 days from Kansoso's. Marere goes frequently on marauding expeditions for cattle and is instigated thereto by his mother. What we understand by primeval forest is but seldom seen in the interior here, though the country cannot be described otherwise than as generally covered with interminable forests. Insects kill or dwarf some trees, and men maim others for the sake of the bark cloth. Elephants break down a great number, and it is only here and there that gigantic specimens are seen. They may be expected in shut-in valleys among mountains, but on the whole the trees are scraggy, and the varieties not great. The different sorts of birds which sing among the branches seem to me to exceed those of the Zambezi region, but I do not shoot them. The number of new notes I hear astonishes me. The country in which we now are is called by the Arabs and natives Ulungu. That farther northwest is named Marunga. Hermes is on friendly terms with the Mazitu, Watuta, in the east, who do not plunder. The chief sent a man to Kasonso lately, and he, having received a present, went away highly pleased. Hermes is certainly very anxious to secure my safety. Some men came from the northeast to inquire about the disturbance here, and they recommended that I should go with them, and then up the east side of the lake to Ujiji. But that would ruin my plan of discovering Morero, and afterwards following the watershed, so as to be certain that this is either the watershed of the Congo or Kyle. He was not well pleased when I preferred to go south than westwards, as it looks like rejecting his counsel. But he said if I waited till his people came, then we should be able to speak with more certainty. On inquiring if any large mountains exist in this country, I was told that Mofipa, or Fipa, opposite the lower end of the lake, is largest. One can see Tanganyika from it. It probably gives rise to the Nakalembwe River and the Luaze. There is nothing interesting in a heathen town. All are busy preparing food or clothing, mats or baskets, whilst the women are cleaning or grinding their corn, which involves much hard labor. They first dry this in the sun, then put it into a mortar, and afterwards with a flat basket clean off the husks and the dust, and grind it between two stones. The next thing is to bring wood and water to cook it. The chief here was aroused the other day and threatened to burn his own house and all his property because the people stole from it, but he did not proceed so far. It was probably a way of letting the Arab dependents know that he was aroused. Some of the people who went to fight attacked a large village and killed several men, but in shooting in a bushy place they killed one of their own party and wounded another. On inquiring of an Arab who had sailed on Tanganyika which way the water flowed, he replied, to the south. The wagtails build in the thatch of the huts. They are busy, and men and other animals are active in the same way. I am rather perplexed how to proceed. Some Arabs seem determined to go westwards as soon as they can make it up with Nasama, whilst others distrust him. One man will send his people to pick up what ivory they can, but he himself will retire to the Usango country. Nasama is expected today or tomorrow. It would be such a saving of time and fatigue for us to go due west rather than south and then west, but I feel great hesitation as to setting out on the circuitous route. Several Arabs came from the Liemba side yesterday. One had sailed on Tanganyika and described the winds there as very baffling, but none of them has a clear idea of the lake. They described the lower part as a sea and thought it different from Tanganyika. Close observation of the natives of Ulungu makes me believe them to be extremely polite. The mode of salutation among relatives is to place the hands round each other's chests, kneeling. They then clap their hands close to the ground. Some more abject individuals kiss the soil before a chief. The generality kneel only, with the forearms close to the ground, and the head bowed down to them, saying, O Ajadla Cheusa Mari Abuino. The Usanga say, Aje Senga. The clapping of hands to superiors and even equals is in some villages a perpetually recurring sound. Aged persons are usually saluted. How this extreme deference to each other could have arisen, I cannot conceive. It does not seem to be fear of each other that elicits it. Even the chiefs inspire no fear, and those cruel old platitudes about governing savages by fear seem unknown. Yet governed they certainly are, and upon the whole very well. The people were not very willing to go to punish Nasama's breach of public law, yet on the decision of the chiefs they went, and came back, one with a wooden stool, another with a mat, a third with a calabash of ground nuts or some dried meat, a hoe or a bow. Poor, poor pay for a fortnight's hard work hunting fugitives and burning villages. 16th June, 1867. News came today that an Arab party in the southwest, in Lunda, lost about 40 people by the smallpox, Ndue. and that the people there, having heard of the disturbance with Nasama, fled from the Arabs and would sell neither ivory nor food. This looks like another obstacle to our progress thither. 17th through 19th June 1867. Hammies went to meet the party from the southwest, probably to avoid bringing the smallpox here. They remain at about 2 hours' distance. Hammies reports that though the strangers had lost a great many people by smallpox, they had brought good news of certain Arabs still further west. One, Saidi ben Umali, or Salem, lived at a village near Kasembe 10 days distant, and another, Juma Maracano, or Katata Katanga, at another village further north, and Side ben Habib was at Fueto, which is near Tanganyika. This party comprises the whole force of Hammies, and he now declares that he will go to Nasama and make the matter up, as he thinks that he is afraid to come here, and so he will make the first approach to friendship. On pondering over the whole subject, I see that, tiresome as it is to wait, it is better to do so than go south and then west, for if I shall go, I shall miss seeing Marrero, which is said to be 3 days from Nasama's present abode. His people go there for salt, and I could not come to it from the south without being known to them, and perhaps considered to be an Arab. Hammies remarked that it was the Arab way first to smooth the path before entering upon it, sending men and presents first, thereby ascertaining the disposition of the inhabitants. He advises patience, and is in hopes of making a peace with Nasama. That his hopes are not unreasonable, he mentioned that when the disturbance began, Nasama sent men with 2 tusks to the village whence he had just been expelled, offering thereby to make the matter up. But the Arabs, suspecting treachery, fired upon the carriers and killed them. Then 10 goats and 1 tusk were sent with the same object, and met with a repulse. Hammies thinks that had he been there himself, the whole matter would have been settled amicably. All complain of cold here. The situation is elevated, and we are behind a clump of trees on the rivulet Chiloa, which keeps the sun off us in the mornings. This cold induces the people to make big fires in their huts, and frequently their dwellings are burned. Minimum temperature is as low as 46 degrees, sometimes 33 degrees. 24th June 1867. The Arabs are all busy reading their Quran or Quran and in praying for direction. Tomorrow they will call a meeting to deliberate as to what steps they will take in the Nasama affair. Hammies, it seems, is highly thought of by that chief who says, "Let him come and all will be right." Hammies proposes to go with but a few people. These Zanzibar men are very different from the slavers of the Wayu country. 25th June 1867. The people, though called, did not assemble, but they will come tomorrow. Young wagtails, nearly full-fledged, took wing, leaving one in the nest. From not being molested by the people, they took no precautions, and ran out of the nest on approach of the old ones, making a loud chirping. The old ones tried to induce the last one to come out too, by flying to the nest and then making a sally forth, turning round immediately to see if he followed. He took a few days longer. It was decided at the meeting that Hammies, with a few people, should go to Nasama on the first day after the appearance of the new moon. They are very particular on this point. The present month having been an unhappy one, they will try the next. 28th June, 1867. A wedding took place among the Arabs today. About 100 blank cartridges were fired off, and a procession of males, dressed in their best, marched through the village. They sang with all their might, though with but little music in the strain. Women sprinkled grain on their heads as wishes for plenty. Nasama is said to be waiting for the Arabs in his new stockade. It is impossible to ascertain exactly who is to blame in this matter, for I hear one side only. But the fact of the chiefs in this part of the country turning out so readily to punish his breach of public law, and no remonstrance coming from him, makes me suspect that Nasama is the guilty party. If he had been innocent, he certainly would have sent to ask the Balunga or Balungu why they had attacked his people without cause. Here is an entry concerning the tribe living far to the east. The Wasongo seem much like Zulus. They go naked. They have prodigious numbers of cattle, which occupy the same huts with their owners. Oxen 2 shukas each, plenty of milk. Marere is very liberal with his cattle and gives everyone an ox. There is no rice, but maize in Maere. Hammies left the people to cultivate rice. Marere had plenty of ivory when the Arabs came first, but now has none. 1st July 1867. New moon today. They are very particular as to the time of offering up prayers and in making charms. One tonight was at 10 p.m. exactly. A number of Kabbalistic figures were drawn by Halfani, and it is believed that by these Nasama's whereabouts may be ascertained. They are probably remains of the secret arts which prevailed among Arabs before Muhammad appeared. These Swahili Arabs appear to have come down the coast before that prophet was born. 3rd July, 1867. Kasonso's people are expected. All the captives that were taken are to be returned and a quantity of cloth given to Nasama in addition. So far, all seems right. The new moon will appear tonight. The Arabs count from one appearance to the next, not as we do, from its conjunction with the sun to the next. 4th July, 1867. Katawanya came from near Liemba to join the peacemakers. He and his party arrived at Liemba after we did. He sent his people all round to seek ivory. They don't care for anything but ivory and cannot understand why I don't do the same. 6th July, 1867, an earthquake happened at 3:30 p.m., accompanied with a hollow rumbling sound. It made me feel as if afloat, but it lasted only a few seconds. The boys came running to ask me what it was. Nowhere could it be safer. The huts will not fall, and there are no high rocks near. Barometer 25.0, temperature 68 degrees 5 minutes. Heavy cumuli hanging about, no rain afterwards. 7th July, 1867. Hamis started this morning with about 300 followers dressed all in their finery, and he declares that his sole object is peace. Kansonso, Mombo, Chitimba send their people, and go themselves to lend all their influence in favor of peace. Said stops here. Before starting, Said put some incense on hot coals, and all the leaders of the party joined in a short prayer. They seem earnest and sincere in their incantations, according to their knowledge and belief. I wished to go too, but Hamis objected as not being quite sure whether Nasama would be friendly, and he would not like anything to befall me when with him. 8th July, 1867. Kasonso found an excuse for not going himself. 2 men, Arabs it was said, came to Chibuis and were there killed, and Kasonso must go to see about it. The people who go carry food with them, evidently not intending to live by plunder this time. While the peacemakers are gone, I am employing time in reading Smith's Bible Dictionary and calculating different positions which have stood over in traveling. I don't succeed well in the Balungo dialect. The owners of huts lent to strangers have a great deal of toil and consequence. They have to clean them after the visitors have withdrawn. Then, in addition to this, to clean themselves, all soiled by the dust left by the lodgers. Their bodies and clothes have to be cleansed afterwards. They add food, too, in all cases of acquaintanceship, and then we have to remember the labor of preparing that food. My remaining here enables me to observe that both men and women are in almost constant employment. The men are making mats or weaving or spinning. No one could witness their assiduity in their little affairs and conclude that they were a lazy people. The only idle time I observe here is in the mornings about 7 o'clock, when all come and sit to catch the first rays of sun as he comes over our clump of trees. But even that time is often taken as an opportunity for stringing beads. I hear that some of Nasama's people cross the Lovu at Karambo to plunder, in retaliation for what they have suffered, and the people there were afraid to fish, lest they be caught by them at a distance from their stockades. The Balungu men are in general tall and well-formed. They use bows over 6 feet in length and but little bent. The facial angle is as good in most cases as Europeans, and they have certainly as little of the lark heel as whites. 1 or 2 of the under front teeth are generally knocked out in women and also in men. 14th July, 1867. Said added to his other presents some more beads. All have been very kind, which I attribute in a great measure to Syed Majid's letter. Hamis crossed the Lovu today at a fordable spot. The people on the other side refused to go with a message to Nasama, so Hamis had to go and compel them by destroying their stockade. A second village acted in the same way, though told it was only peace that was sought of Nasama. This stockade suffered the same fate, and then the people went to Nasama, and he showed no reluctance to have intercourse. He gave abundance of food, pombe, and bananas, the country being extremely fertile. Nasama also came and ratified the peace by drinking blood with several of the underlings of Hamis. He is said to be an enormously bloated old man who cannot move unless carried, and women are constantly in attendance pouring pombe into him. He gave Hamis 10 tusks and promised him 20 more, and also to endeavor to make his people return what goods they plundered from the Arabs, and he is to send his people over here to call us after the new moon appears. It is tiresome beyond measure to wait so long, but I hope to see Morero for this exercise of patience, and I could not have visited it had Hammies not succeeded in making peace. 17th July, 1867. A lion roared very angrily at the village last night. He was probably following the buffaloes that sometimes come here to drink at night. They are all very shy, and so is all the game, from fear of animals. A curious disease has attacked my left eyelid and surrounding parts. A slight degree of itchiness is followed by great swelling of the part. It must be a sort of lichen. Exposure to the sun seems to cure it, and this leads me to take long walks therein. This is about 30 degrees 19 minutes east longitude, latitude 8 degrees 57 minutes 55 seconds south. 24th July, 1867. A fire broke out at 4 a.m., and there being no wind, the straw roofs were cleared off in front of it on our side of the village. The granaries were easily unroofed, as the roof is not attached to the walls, and the Arabs tried to clear a space on their side, but were unable, and then moved all their ivory and goods outside the stockade. Their side of the village was all consumed, and 3 goats perished in the flames. Tchimba has left us from a fear of his life. He says, it is probable that he means this flight to be used as an excuse to Nasama after we are gone. And I, too, was obliged to flee from my village to save my life. What could I do? This is to be his argument, I suspect. A good many slaves came from the 2 villages that were destroyed. On inquiry, I was told that these would be returned when Nasama gave the ivory promised. When Nasama was told that an Englishman wished to go past him to Marero, he replied, bring him, and I shall send men to take him thither. Hammies is building a tembe, or house with a flat roof and walls plastered over with mud, to keep his ivory from fire while he is absent. We expect that Nasama will send for us a few days after the 2nd August, when the new moon appears. If they do not come soon, Hammies will send men to Nasama without waiting for his messengers. 28th July, 1867. Prayers with the litany. Slavery is a great evil wherever I have seen it. A poor old woman and child are among the captives. The boy, about 3 years old, seems a mother's pet. His feet are sore from walking in the sun. He was offered for 2 fathoms, and his mother for 1 fathom. He understood it all and cried bitterly, clinging to his mother. She had, of course, no power to help them. They were separated at Kurungu afterwards. The above is an episode of everyday occurrence in the wake of the slave dealer. 2 fathoms, mentioned as the price of the boy's life, the more valuable of the 2, means 4 yards of unbleached calico, which is a universal article of barter throughout the greater part of Africa. The mother was bought for 2 yards. The reader must not think that there are no lower prices. In the famines which succeeded the slave dealer's raids, boys and girls are at times to be purchased by the dealer for a few handfuls of maize. 29th July, 1867. Went 2.5 hours west to the village of Ponda, where a head Arab called by the natives Tipo Tipo lives. His name is Hamid bin Muhammad bin Juma Borajib. He presented a goat, a piece of white calico, and 4 big bunches of beads, also a bag of hulkus sorghum, and apologized because it was so little. He had lost much by Nasama and received 2 arrow wounds there. They had only 20 guns at the time, but some were in the stockade, and though the people of Nasama were very numerous, they beat them off, and they fled, carrying the bloated carcass of Nasama with them. Some reported that boxes were found in the village which belonged to parties who had perished before, but Side assured me this was a mistake. Moero is 3 days distant, and as Nasama's people go thither to collect salt on its banks, it would have been impossible for me to visit it from the south without being seen, and probably suffering loss. The people seem to have no family names. A man takes the name of his mother, or should his father die, he may assume that. Marriage is forbidden to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degrees. They call 1st and 2nd cousins brothers and sisters. A woman, after cupping her child's temples for sore eyes, threw the blood over the roof of her hut as a charm. In the above process, a goat's horn is used with a small hole at the pointed end. The base is applied to the part from which the blood is to be withdrawn, and the operator, with a small piece of chewed India rubber in his mouth, exhausts the air, and at the proper moment plasters the small hole up with his tongue. When the cupping horn is removed, some cuts are made with a small knife, and it is again applied. As a rough appliance, it is a very good one, and in great repute everywhere. End of chapter 8.